One of the things that I'm most proud of, to be honest, is not just that our scouts are now recognised by the football world, but that the football world recognises us.
This is Miles Jacobson, Studio Director of Sports Interactive, who make the world's most compelling and best-selling sports simulation game with over 20 million copies sold.
The game originally started, the two brothers, Oliver and Paul Collier, who lived on a farm in Shropshire. They were playing a lot of what were called play-by-mail games at the time. And they decided to make a game for themselves. And it got terrible review scores from the specialist games press, who just didn't get it at all because there weren't graphics in it. It was all text-based.
FM is so captivating, it has ruined relationships, led to sackings, and been cited in over 35 divorce cases. But it's all worth it if you manage to get your beloved Tranmere Rovers to the Champions League final, having spent hours scouting the new Messi.
We've got 1,300 scouts around the world, and that's broken up into different areas.
We have 6 people internally in the research team. Below that, there's about 100 what we call head researchers, who will be responsible for maybe one league, maybe one nation, maybe a couple of nations. And below them, we have assistant researchers, who usually look at one club or a couple of clubs.
It's not just about how good players are now. That's easy to find. You can find that stuff through Opta, through Prozone. There's loads of tools out there that have that kind of info for a lot of leagues. It's also about how they're going to be in the future. It's about the individual statistics rather than just how much they run each match.
We try really hard not to have those sort of prescribed templates, if you like, because most players don't fit those things.
We spend a lot more time watching players than most clubs do. So if a club's going to sign a player, they might watch them 10 times, whereas we're watching them over years and years and years.
Football Manager's database has risen exponentially from its early inception, going from a handful of leagues with fictitious players to having the most in-depth, real-world collection of football data with around 700,000 current players and staff listed.
As we've modelled more and more leagues, you have to get more and more people, and if you put one league in, that's every player in that league, every staff member in that league. I remember when we added Gibraltar, we thought this is going to be easy, this will be a quick job. Very quickly we had a few thousand people who were involved in football in a place where there's one football pitch and probably about 40,000 people living.
But it's not just about the amount of data, it's about how incredibly accurate it is.
The strike rate for transfers at most clubs is around 50%. Our strike rate's a lot better than that. The last time we looked and tried to work it out, it was 99.5%, which is pretty insane.
Expectations are so high that everyone fixates on that 0.5%. But for every Freddie Adu, there's plenty more Messis and Hazards out there.
My favourite of all the success stories is Leo Messi.
Alec McLeish's son came to him, having played an early version of Football Manager, where Messi's a 16-year-old rattling around in the reserves, and says, Dad, you've got to sign this guy. He's destroying on my save. McLeish kind of goes, all right, son, leave this to the big boys. And obviously, how different things might have been.
The world of football is starting to turn towards Football Manager and use its extensive data to find that next big thing.
The earliest one that I was aware of was actually Andre Villas-Boas, when he was Jose Mourinho's chief scout at Chelsea. We license our data to football clubs now, so we have a deal with Prozone, or Stats as they're now called.
They were looking to build their database of players. I think at the time they had about 100,000 in their database, whereas we had 325,000 active players. We also have a lot of contact with clubs. So specifically MLS clubs seem to be the ones that are contacting us most of the time recently.
No club will ever turn around and admit that they've bought players directly off the back of the database. But all you have to do is go and have a look at the transfers that have happened in real life based on stuff that's happened in game, and you can tell which clubs have used it, and not just at the top level, at lower levels as well.
With their database growing every year, Football Manager has gone from being a text-based simulation game that complements the world of football to having a seat at the top table of world football.
We will only remain selling games if each version of our game is better than the last, and the last thing that you can accuse us of as a team and as a studio is of being complacent. We make the game for ourselves. We want the game to be as good as possible for ourselves. So we're not going to take the foot off the gas of trying to improve things, because then we wouldn't have as good a game to play.